Hello.
Wait, okay.
There we go. I can hear you. Can't see you. There we go.
I think it's
figure this out.
Yeah, it's recording. Okay, that's fine. I will edit whatever we need to edit.
Oh yeah, we'll just have to take out the beginning. Because we're gonna have to figure out which screen to share and everything. Also, I feel like my hair all of a sudden just got frizzy. I'm like, what the heck?
Okay, let me get the script. I also hate that voice of the.
I know, it sounds so official. So I'll share my screen since I'm gonna be doing a demo.
Okay.
But how do we do that?
Oh, I think I need to make you a presenter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, it says please close any confidential windows. Oh yeah, I should close out my.
That is such a simple reminder.
I know. Thank you. They probably had so many complaints about it. Like, oh, user error.
Please close all Indeed applications.
Okay, show my screen. Show screen. Show. How do I know which screen I'm showing?
I see
the slides.
Yes, but not in presentation mode.
How do I change which screen? Oh, here we go. Now do you see umbrellas? Or do you see anything?
I still see the Canva window.
What the heck? Screen of monitor 1. Screen.
You might have to click present. Let me see. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Gosh, so many things. Okay, presenter mode. Enter full screen.
There we go. Perfect.
Got it. Okay, now you can see just the we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Okay. So let me go at the beginning. I just went through it. Oh, I switched we want to hear from you and the contact. So I figured we could just have the contact information up while we go through our questions.
Okay, I like that.
Because it felt weird. I did a practice run and it felt weird being like, here's how to contact us, but also wait, take the survey. So I'll tell them to take the survey and then they can.
No, that's totally fine. Let me see.
Okay, so if I want to get rid of this hover thing. Hold on. Hide magic cursor. Okay. Now, how do I get myself not so big? This is not a good interface.
For which one?
So my screen, the only way I can see us is if I have it like really big, but then I can't see my screen. But I also like want to make sure I can see us in case I'm like doing anything crazy. Or you're like, stop, you know what I mean? Well, it's not live, so if you really need me to stop, we'll just say stop. But
yeah, no, these are going to make great clips for the bloopers reel. We'll do an end of month recap. Okay.
So I will, let me see, change. I think I'm just gonna have to not see us. But last time I did a webinar, I couldn't see us and I like felt blind, you know what I mean?
I can still see us at the top.
Okay, I made us smaller, so I think that helped.
Okay.
Okay, so then I'll just, if I click, of course now it's not gonna go. Oh, if I click away, I can't see us. That's really bad design. Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's right. So I was gonna read the about us. Me too.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I don't know if it's like totally needed. I mean, it's nice, but I feel like a lot of people already know who we are if they're gonna join our webinar.
That's what I'm thinking too.
So honestly, we could probably get rid of it if we wanted to.
Sarah got on to me for not putting it in, so I've just been sticking
it. Really? Okay, no, keep it in. I can do a high level one.
Let's see.
I'm fine.
What do we have?
After almost 8 years, I should be able to talk about it.
Wait, you've been with HR for Health for 8 years?
I'm a child.
You are
Yeah, my
lying.
first. What?
So you've been, wait, did you join the same time Jill did?
She's a year before me. So it goes Jill's 9 years. I'm coming up on 8, and then Kahan just hit 8. So it goes Jill, Kahan, me, and then TJ.
What?
Well,
Okay.
and David. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. That's why I should be able to do the about us. Also, can you hear my dog barking?
No, I
Or
can't.
she stopped. Okay. I put her in our room on the other side of the house because I knew she was gonna bark.
Mm. Okay. Let's see this about us one. Do I want to keep this? Why don't we just?
I can do it. Don't worry about it.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
right.
oh, actually, we should make sure, because I'll just do a high level. And then
Okay.
if I pull over the software, can you see this?
Ooh, perfect.
Okay, cool.
Oh, that was a beautiful transition too. Okay.
I just want to make sure people can see it. I'm so glad we're not doing this live. Stressful. Okay, I have my Ring Central off. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
I don't have any emails up. I have the screen. What else do we need? Make sure I can click it. Yep.
I think that's perfect.
We're gonna be great.
Okay. Whew. You ready?
We'll just rip the Band-Aid off. We got this.
All
By
right.
the way, it took me about 20 minutes when I recorded it by myself, or when I practiced, so just an estimate.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. All right.
Oh, and then, sorry, you have the questions at the end?
Let me see. Do you want me to read those off?
Yeah, I think I'll just say, like, oh, did we have any, or when you do your closing, maybe just say, oh, looks like we had a couple questions. Ask those too, so we can make it seem like it's live. And then you can do your outro.
Okay. Let's do.
And then this is airing at 5 p.m. PST, right?
I believe so, yes.
I shouldn't say, well, not that I'd say good morning ever, but
Okay.
I purposely like closed my blinds a little bit so it wasn't as bright there.
I'm just really extra and have like a giant ring light behind my computer, so it's always gonna look bright in here.
I love it. I know, I was like, I can't show any windows. I'm just gonna I flipped my desk around.
Okay.
I felt like it was weird.
You ready?
Okay, let me drink some water and then we'll go. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. 3. I really hope we can edit this. Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Taylor Danko, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at HR for Health. Paid time off is complicated and competitive in the healthcare industry. Laws vary by state, and many practices use unlimited PTO to win over candidates. We expect you to know only some PTO, vacation, and sick leave policies. However, we want you to know that not adhering to state-specific laws can be costly in legal fees. In this webinar, Lauren, our product manager, you'll learn what is required, the importance of writing these policies in your handbook, and the payment at the employment separation. Let us know. I'll edit this out. Let us show you the differences on how our software will keep you compliant even as laws change. Go ahead and submit your questions throughout the webinar and we'll get to them at the end. With that being said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. I'm excited to be here tonight. I know PTO is a hot topic, so hopefully we'll clarify some of those confusions for you throughout this webinar. Wait, sorry, pause. I just realized that you can go off camera. I didn't think about it.
Okay.
Can we start over? I feel like we should start over only because I was laughing at the mistake that you made, and then the cut might be really.
No, we should start over anyways. That's totally fine.
Okay, so how do you go off camera? You just turn your webcam off?
Yeah.
Do you want to practice or no? You'll just click off. I just didn't want you to have to feel like you have to sit there like this the whole time. You know what I mean?
No, I'll turn mine off. That's good. I was wondering about that, but I didn't know if you felt less supported if I turned off my
No,
camera.
no, no. You can turn it off. I was like, oh wait, we didn't think about that. Okay, no, this is good. We're getting all the kinks out. So as soon as you intro it, then you can go off, and then at the end, when we get to the contact us screen, you can come back on.
Okay,
And
perfect. Let's do that.
okay, this one's gonna be good, and I won't laugh next time.
Okay, I deserved it. Okay,
Uh,
round two. Whew. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Taylor Danko, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at HR for Health. Paid time off is complicated and competitive in the healthcare industry. Laws vary by state, and many practices use unlimited PTO to win over their candidates. We expect you to know only some PTO, vacation, and sick leave policies. However, we want you to know that not adhering to the state-specific laws can be costly in legal fees. In this webinar with Lauren, our product manager, you'll learn what is required, the importance of writing these policies in your handbook, and the payment at the employment separation. Let us show you the differences and how our software will keep you compliant even as laws change. Go ahead and submit your questions throughout the webinar and we'll get to them at the very end. And with that being said, I will turn the presentation over to Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. I know PTO is a hot topic, so I'm excited to dive into it today. First, I just wanted to go into a little bit about HR for Health and who we are. So we are an all-in-one HR software. Our main goal is obviously to keep you compliant, but we also want to save you time and money. We know that you're running busy practices. We want to make sure that you have that time to focus on what matters, your patients. So we offer an employee handbook software, integrated payroll, timekeeping with all of your state's regulations in mind, like overtime, cloud-based documentation with electronic signatures for your team to sign all of their paperwork, employee performance and violations, so you have all that documentation needed, and then the full scope from hiring to termination, all the tools and documents that you need there. So really all in one. If you're already a client, we want to make sure that you're utilizing this and making it your lives even easier. So today we're going to focus again on PTO. So the first we'll go over what's actually required, the importance of having a policy in place in your employee handbook outlining everything, and then how to pay at separation of employment. So whether it's a termination or resignation, I'll walk you through the steps there. So first we'll start off with what's required. So sick leave is really the only time off that's required in some states. So again, it's not in all states, but it's becoming more and more of a trend across the states. And it's not just states, some cities have requirements around sick leave as well. So it's really important to make sure that you know what your location's requirements are for this. So that's really the only requirement. Not required is PTO, vacation, and paid holidays. So I know it might seem like it's a required. Many businesses do offer these things to be competitive, which is also important, but also know it's a financial burden, of course, so you want to make sure that you're providing what you can financially approve and what's best for your practice. But again, it is good to offer these things in order to stay competitive, especially in today's job market. So we'll jump into each of these as well. So first of all, what's the difference between PTO and vacation? So PTO is going to be more broad. Employees can use that time however they wish. Maybe they're sick, maybe they're taking it for a vacation, they need to care for a family member. It's more general, and they can use that time however they need to. This simplifies the tracking and request process because any time off that the employee has, it's going to automatically default to PTO, makes it a little bit easier for the approval process. Vacation and sick leave policies are going to be more specific. So if an employee is taking vacation, you can specifically say that they have to give, let's say, a month's notice for that vacation time. Of course, you can't give a month's notice for sick leave. They might not know until the night before or the morning of. So you can be a little bit more specific with your vacation and sick leave policies when they're separate. If you are at a location that requires sick leave, we typically recommend that you keep them separate, only because a lot of these sick leave rules have a lot of restrictions and regulations that you have to meet. So you want to make sure that everything is outlined in accordance with your location's rules. Another thing to keep in mind is standalone sick leave, for the most part, is not required to be paid out when an employee leaves the practice or if they have unused sick leave at the end of the year. So that might save you a little bit more money as well if you're keeping vacation and sick leave separate. So just some pros and cons to each of those options. The next one, another hot topic. What do other practices offer? Of course, everyone wants to make sure that they're competitive, giving what other practitioners are giving in their industry, but not offering too much. You want to find what's the happy medium. So again, this isn't a requirement, but this is just the most common structure that we see with our clients. So from 1 to 3 years of service, typically 40 hours of PTO, from 3 to 5 years, 80 hours of PTO, 5 or more years, it's 120 hours. Typically, we always recommend that you do an anniversary year accrual date. Our system will notify you so you know exactly when you need to roll over those hours, pay them out, just depends on what your policy is. And you'll get an alert so that you never forget to do those things. We can also set up an auto rollover so that at the end of every year, those hours are just automatically going into the next benefit year bank. So really just takes care of that and makes your life a little bit easier. No more spreadsheets to track these things. Okay, so what does a lack of a policy, what could that affect in your practice? So this makes it harder for you to stick to a consistent process with all of your employees. You may not be operating compliantly if you don't have a clear policy to fall back on. It could lead to negative morale in your practice, claims of inaccurate reporting of time off banks, lack of employee access and transparency. If you don't have a policy, employees may not know how many hours they're getting, how they're accruing it, when they need to request it, what the process is. So it's really, really crucial to have a policy in place, both for yourself, so you can always look back and see exactly how you need to handle the situation, but also so that your team knows what the policy is. So any time off policy should include all of these things. The first one is the accrual rate. So are they accruing per hour? How many hours are they accruing? Are they getting it per year in a lump sum? So you want to make sure that's clearly outlined. The next is the eligibility. So are they getting it after their introductory period, which typically is 90 days? Are they getting it after their first year of employment? You want to make sure you're clearly defining this as well so employees don't think that they're supposed to be getting PTO earlier than they need to be. End of year, I kind of mentioned this. Is it going to carry over? Is it paid out? Is it a use it or lose it? You want to make sure that's clearly defined both at the end of the benefit year and at the time of separation. So again, all states have different rules on this, so you want to make sure you know what your state's rules are. The next one is usage increments. So do you want to allow them to use it in 1 hour, 2 hour increments? Do you want them to have to use a full day at a time? You want to make sure that that's clearly stated in the policy as well. The next one is doctor's notes. So specifically for sick leave, if they're out for, let's say, 3 or more days, do you want to require a doctor's note? Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record on this, but states do have their own regulations for doctor's note with sick leave, so just keep that in mind as well. Usage reasons, so can they use PTO however they wish? What can they use sick leave for? Just outlining the reasons that they can use this leave. And then notice requirements, if you want them to request vacation a month in advance, maybe you need them to request it 6 months in advance because of how you schedule your patients. So whatever your practice needs, you want to outline that there. And then the last one is if you require paid time before unpaid time. So if you are allowing unpaid time off, do you want them to use all their PTO hours or vacation hours before taking that? Or do you not care? Either way, you want to make sure that that's specifically outlined in your policy so employees aren't taking advantage of it. Okay, so the next topic we're going to jump into is holiday pay. So there are a few myths that we hear all the time. Myth number 1 is you must observe and pay your team for holidays. Myth number 2 is you must pay your employees double pay if they work on a holiday. And myth number 3 is you have to give holiday pay when the doctor is on vacation. So let's say the practice is closed, doctor's on vacation, you have to give holiday pay. These are all what they say. They are purely myths. They are not legally required. You don't have to give your team holidays. Of course, like I mentioned before, it's always helpful to. We do recommend that you do give paid holidays, but again, you want to make sure you're deciding based on what your practice can do. So if you want to pay double time or time and a half, you can. If you want to give holidays, you can. The most common holidays that we see practices offer are New Year's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. So the main 6, as I like to call them. Again, not a requirement. If you can offer more, then great. Your employees will feel very taken care of, I'm sure. But again, it's not a requirement. So what should you have in your holiday policy? So if you do decide to pay a premium for working on a holiday, so whether it's time and a half, double time, however you want to structure that, you want to clearly outline how you're going to track these hours and how you're going to pay for these hours. So make sure that you have a system in place there. If you're going to pay for the day off on a holiday when the practice is closed, you want to determine, are they eligible if they aren't scheduled for the day? So maybe the holiday falls on a Monday, but that employee isn't usually scheduled on Mondays. Are they going to get that pay or are they not? And then are they eligible if they are absent the business day before or after the holiday? Maybe you've seen an employee who's always out sick the day after a holiday. So do you want them to get holiday pay, or does it seem like they're abusing the system there? The next one is if it is paid, if it falls on a business day that the business is usually closed. So let's say it falls on a Saturday, but your practice is always closed on Saturdays. Do you want to pay for that holiday or not? Again, you just want to make sure that all of these are clearly outlined in your policy so employees know exactly when they are eligible for the paid holiday and when they are not. And again, it helps you as well. If you're like, wait, do I pay for this? You have that policy to fall back on and you can remind yourself along the way. Okay, so I mentioned this a little bit. We do have a handbook software. So if you're currently an HR for Health client, please, please, please utilize this. We ask you all of the questions that I just went over for the required policies. So all of that's going to automatically be generated into your handbook. And again, I've sounded like a broken record on this, but it is based on your specific state and city requirements. So all of those different nuances are going to automatically be included in your policies, so you don't have to worry about looking all of those things up. If you already have a handbook, then great, you're all good. If you have a handbook with us. If you haven't finished your questionnaire and you're a current client, please go do so. Let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help you out there. The next one is pay at separation. So this is always a hot topic because there's always, emotions when an employee is leaving the practice. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. We do have a separation document checklist, if you will. So it outlines all the documents that you need for your employees if they're leaving the practice. It also includes all the final pay regulations based on your state. So if it's a resignation, when do you need to pay the final paycheck? If it's a termination, when do you need to pay it? But most importantly, if you need to pay PTO, vacation, or sick leave at the time of separation. In many states, and it's not a very well-known fact, but in a lot of states, they don't have a requirement to pay out PTO and vacation, but they do say if you don't clearly state in a policy that you do not pay at the time of separation, you may be required in that case to pay it out. So that's when the policy becomes even more important, because the state saying, well, we don't actually require it, but you have to clearly state it in your policy. Otherwise, you have to pay. So you want to make sure if you're in a state that allows for this, that you clearly state it. We do not pay for PTO and vacation at the time of separation of employment, so that you're covered there and aren't having to pay hours that you otherwise wouldn't have to. So super important. Awesome. So I'm going to show you a few of these things in the actual software, show you how easy it is so that we could hopefully save you some time and headache with all these time off things. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So first, since we've been talking about time off, I'm going to go ahead and go to this employee's time off section. Employees are always going to be able to see their time off balances, all of their requests, everything that they need to see in one page. So this employee has a vacation benefit and a paid sick leave balance. So vacation, they have 0 hours remaining, and sick leave, they have 16 hours remaining. You can see here that the vacation request is still pending, so the manager hasn't approved this yet. And then the sick leave one has already been approved and it was applied to the paid sick leave bank. So the manager would come in and see, okay, there's a pending request here. Let me click manage next to it. And you can see here, I showed you that they didn't have any vacation hours remaining, but we're also going to give you this banner right here. It's like, hey, if you approve this time off, it's actually going to put this employee in the negative because they don't have any PTO hours left. So you might be an autopilot and just approving time off, but we'll make sure to give you a heads up. Hey, they don't have any vacation hours remaining. Are you sure you want to approve this? So you still can, and it'll put the employee into a -8 balance. Just keep in mind, it does get a little bit tricky when you go into the negatives. It can be hard to get that money back. So if you're okay with losing it, then great. If not, then we recommend making it an unpaid time off. So you can manage all of that here. You can also reject the request. So just because an employee requests PTO doesn't mean that they automatically have to take it. So maybe it's a vacation and they didn't follow your policy with giving a month's notice. So in the comments, you can actually say, didn't follow policy, not approved time off, and then you can click reject. So again, everything is documented here for you. The next thing I want to walk you through is the separation documents that I just went over. So again, it's going to be based on the state that you're located in. So this account is California specifically. It'll have all of the documents here. You can hover over to see what the specific document is. The next column is the applicable personnel. So do you have to give this to employees, independent contractors, or both? Who is it required to? So some documents are based on employer size, or if it's for all employers. Separation type, so is it required for termination or resignation, or just one or the other? Obligation is if it's a mandatory document, recommended, informational, or optional. And then here you can download all of these documents. So while we typically advise everything is electronically signed, for separation documents, we actually recommend that you fill it out and print it so that you can actually have the employee sign it at the time of termination. There's just a higher success rate with offering them the physical document than having them come back into the software to sign. So this is the one case where we recommend having you print and sign it. So let's say there is a resignation and I only want to do the mandatory document. So you can filter up here and just see these two documents are what I need for this specific resignation. So all of this information's here. I'll also clear this and show you the final pay regulations. So here, every state will have their specific final pay regulations. It goes over when you need to pay for voluntary, so that would be resignation, when you need to pay for involuntary, so a termination, how you need to handle vacation and PTO, and then any penalties that apply. So it'll give you exactly what would happen if you don't pay this correctly. So if you ever have questions on like, well, what if I don't do this? What could happen? It's all included there for you. And then last time, I just wanted to show a payroll report and kind of how the holidays would look. So we're going to pretend that we're running a payroll for Memorial Day. So we'll do May 28th through, let's say, June 7th, and you'll click run. It'll give you notice up here if you have any employees with any pending items. So this employee has a time off request that hasn't been approved, so we want to make sure that's approved before I close payroll. But specifically, I wanted to show you this section here. So paid holiday and paid time off. So this is my Memorial Day holiday. These are all of my employees that have been assigned to it. So you can check and make sure if everything looks right. If you have any new employees that are now eligible that you need to add, you can check all of that here. And then if you are a payroll client of ours, you're going to have this final paycheck tab. And you run everything else the same, but what's different is it'll actually link the final pay regulations from this page as well. Obviously, that's crucial when you're figuring out what you need to pay your employee for their final wages, so you can easily reference that. And then we also have these check boxes. So if you check the pay remaining balances for PTO and vacation and sick leave, those balances are going to automatically be included in their final paycheck. So again, just saves you the extra step of adding those hours or communicating to your payroll company. You can just go ahead and check those boxes. Awesome. So that's what we do in the software, making your lives a little bit easier. So now let's go over next steps. So what do you need to do from here? Policies, policies, policies. I've probably said the word handbook a million times, but you really want to make sure that you have policies in place for transparency with your team so they know exactly when they're eligible, what they need to do, what happens to unused hours. The next is communication with your team, so making sure that you're sending those policies to them in a place where they have access to it. Again, our handbook, you can send it to them electronically, they can sign it, they always have access to it. And then, like I showed you, they always have access to their time off balances and requests as well. And then implementation. So obviously you're making this plan, you have the policies, but you actually need to make sure that you're implementing it in your practice. So making sure that you have a process for tracking your time off balances and employee requests. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to quickly go over is we want to hear from you. We pride ourselves in listening to our users' feedback. Even if you're not an HR for Health client yet, we want to know what you want to see in an HR software, what features would wow you, what are you struggling with currently, what are your HR pain points, all of the above. We want to make sure that we're hearing from you directly because we're building this software for you to make your lives easier. So go ahead and scan this QR code. There's just a few questions for you. This is extremely valuable to us. And again, we want to make sure it's the best that it can be for you. All right. Taylor, I'll go ahead and kick it back to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Before we wrap up today's presentation, I'd like to address a couple of the common questions that we see from our clients and that I've been asked during this webinar. And one of them being, should I be tracking unpaid time off for my team?
Yes, great question. A lot of practices aren't tracking unpaid time off because you might be thinking, oh, well, they don't need to use their PTO balance, so why do I need to track it? I always recommend that you do track that unpaid time off, especially if you are requiring paid time before unpaid. You just want to make sure that employees aren't taking too much time off. So you really want to document any day that the employee is out of the practice when they were scheduled, whether it's paid or unpaid, just for documentation purposes.
Awesome. And the last question that we have for today is, what should I do if my employees are taking too much time off?
Yes, great question. So again, you want to make sure that your team isn't abusing their time off. You want to be fair to them and allow them to take the time off that they've accrued. But let's say that they've used all their PTO and now they're taking unpaid time off, or they're just taking it outside of what your policy states. You definitely, again, want to make sure that you're documenting all of that, having a conversation with them. Hey, I know you've had all this time off from this point forward until maybe your next benefit range start. We're not going to approve any additional time off. If it does get to the point where they're continuously taking unapproved time off, we do have a violations feature. So if you're an HR for Health client, make sure that you're utilizing that feature for documentation. You can actually copy in your policy. So that specifically outlines when they need to request it, how they can take their hours. So it's always good to be objective and include your handbook policy in a violation. And then depending on what violation type you select, you can actually have the employee sign off on it. Just because if it becomes a bigger problem, you have that documentation to show you addressed it with them, they signed off on it. Everything's electronically time-stamped so you can show when you spoke to them about it. Again, just want to make sure that you always build that documentation. But yes, great question. It's a very common thing that comes up.
Thank you, Lauren. And I also did not know there was a thing of taking off too much time. I feel like I never do that enough. But
yeah, it's always one or the other. Employees don't take any or they take too much, right?
Well, thank you so much. And for those who are watching this webinar, I hope that this made it more understandable of why it's best practice to have a software that documents all of these features. And that it's not as scary as it seems, but if you have a team that's willing to help you, like HR for Health with our software, you can get a lot of this done, and it's quick, easy, and painless. And we care about this because 14% of lost healthcare practice revenue is due to outdated and insufficient team scheduling, PTO, and timekeeping. Let us take these worries off of your shoulders, keep you compliant. And if you have additional questions, we've had this up on the screen with our phone number, our email address, and you can always go to our website to learn more about what we do and why we do it. And with that, I think that's the end of our webinar today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we did it.
Yay.
Okay.
I can't see you anymore. There you are. Once I clicked over to the software and I clicked back, I couldn't see you.